Hi all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Brittany. I'm in Garden Zone 6A in Hudson Valley, New York. And today I wanted to make a video about where to get started if you're just getting started in the cut flower world. So I have had a couple friends reach out, over the past couple months and say, hey, I really want to get into cut flowers this summer. Like, where should I start? And that's really what inspired this video. But these are going to be the top 13 flowers that you can just direct seed into your, garden space. So again, if you don't have a garden, I'm going to talk through 3 tips for just getting set up. And then I'll also talk through the 13 flowers that I believe are just the easiest to grow. And really, truly start somewhere, start anywhere. You do not have to grow all 13 of these at once. You can just pick 1 or 2 and trial them and see how it goes. But really, I wanted to keep this super simple. So the 13 flowers I'm going to talk about today are Larkspur, Bachelor's Button, Orlaya, Nigella, Snapdragon, Zinnias, Cosmos, Sunflowers, Basil, Gomphrena, Celosia, Amaranth, and Strawflower. These are some of my favorites, truly, even though they are very easy to just direct seed into your garden. But before you plant, the things I wanted to talk about are to, 1, find a sunny location. So wherever you plan to grow a cut flower garden, it needs to have at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight a day. And that is super important, of course, to make sure that the flowers grow their best. Next, I wanted to talk about as well is figuring out your last frost date. This is super important for planning out when to plant each of these seeds I'm going to talk about. So you can quickly do this by just going to Google, typing in, your specific location, and then ask for your last frost date and garden zone. And then typically another step 3 that I really recommend too is just preparing and amending your soil. So whether you're going to do a raised bed and just buy raised bed soil, it's super important to still add compost. I highly recommend Coast of Maine's lobster and crab compost. I have found over the years when I use this, my blooms are just truly beautiful and I don't have to fertilize them or feed them, and they just grow truly wonderful, all of these varieties that I'm going to talk about today. Another thing to consider as well is support for your flowers. So really important for some of the flowers I'm going to talk about, like Snapdragon, some of the branching sunflowers are really need that support because their heads are so heavy. And then Larkspur can be, utilize that. But truly, outside of zinnias, like I think most of these flowers I'm going to talk about could really benefit from support. So whether it's netting, just kind of planning that in advance, before they start growing is really important. So next I'm going to dive into timeline. So I wanted to talk about these 13 flowers in the order that you should plant them. So super simple to grab a calendar once you know your last frost date and count backwards on when you should get out and direct seed these different flowers I'm going to talk about. So some of these can also be sown in the fall for spring blooms. So that's certainly an option too, but I want to make it easy and just talk about when you can direct seed them if you're getting started now. I'm in the dead of winter, so I'm just starting to make my game plan. But the first one is Larkspur. So that should be planted out 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost date because it really likes cold stratification. And then next would be Bachelor's Button and Orlaya. And I will try to post pictures as I speak to these flowers too, so you can get an idea of what they look like if you're interested in growing them and all of that good stuff. And then those should be planted out 4 to 6 weeks before your last frost date. So again, this is something you can just write on your calendar, count backwards, and plan to get out into your specific garden space and add them. And then 2 to 3 weeks before your last frost, things that are cold tolerant would be Nigella and Snapdragon. So, plan to get out there and plant them at that point. And then after last frost would be Zinnias, Cosmos, Sunflowers, and then Basil, Gomphrena, Amaranth, and Strawflower because they are really heat-loving flowers. And then just to speak to as well, I think another tip that I forgot to mention earlier in the video is making sure that you're getting your seeds from a reputable source. I actually did have one of my friends that asked me about cut flowers, and she was like, I get my seeds on Amazon. And while yes, they might work out, I'm not really overly confident about what the quality looks like there. So I highly recommend a site like Johnny Seeds or looking local in your specific area. So I also purchased from Hudson Valley Seed Company, and they're local, and it makes me happy to support local, of course, too, but make sure that it's a reputable source so that your flowers will germinate, appropriately. So something to consider there. But I really wanted to show you too, I've talked about this in the past videos, but the back of a seed packet, because I think, for all the flowers I talked about, they're going to have a different desired way to be planted. So this is an example here, but this is Cosmos. And I'll kind of show you and bring it in the back of the packet here. Sorry if I'm shaking. I just had a lot of coffee. But you can see here that it's going to show you the spacing. So when you're planting the seeds, they're going to need to make sure that they're 9 to 12 inches apart. I do recommend, as you're getting started, to plant at least 2 seeds per spacing to make sure that it germinates, and then you can thin it out after. And thinning out just means if you 2 pop up, you cut one out and then leave the other to grow so that it has enough space. And then just to speak here as well, so under direct seed, you can see, so after last frost here, and then it just says cover seeds lightly. So every seed is going to have a different way that they like to be planted. And I'll see if I can get one more example for you here, but this is the double click Cosmos. Let me pull up though another example. So yes, so this is the single stem Pro Cut Sunflower. And then on the back, you'll see here, it says after last frost to sow 1.5 half inch deep. So just super important to know the depth that you need to plant the seeds, but also the spacing. So these can be 4 to 6 inches apart. So just make sure when you're planning out, and this is something you can even map out in advance. Certainly check out my garden plan video if you want to see what spacing looks like and how I plan my raised beds. But you can, again, just make sure that you're following the back of the seed packet information when you plant any of these 13 seeds. But really, that is my video for today. I just wanted to make it super quick and easy to digest on how to get started, the flowers I recommend to get started with. And again, certainly check out Johnny Seeds, but pick the flowers based on your preference. Like, it's so fun to play with color. I've had friends that have grown all white gardens. I've had friends that love color as much as I do. And, really you can play around with color scheme there. But all of these really create dynamic arrangements too. There's a good mix of focal flowers, filler flowers, but really just the easiest place to get started. So again, lastly, start somewhere, start anywhere. And it's so wonderful to bring flowers into your home and to also be able to share them with family, friends, neighbors. It's truly magical, and excited for your flower journey. Comment below which of these you would get started with and what you're planning for your cut flower garden. And if this was helpful, certainly give it a like and subscribe to, have more cut flower content in the future. Thanks so much and have a great day.